Phyllis, your letter to our donors starts with the description of your 10-year-old daughter's question to you. She said, I'm paraphrasing, but how old was your mom when she died, I think? And that question seems to have been a catalyst for you for some really significant things in your life.
So my daughter's question just made me realize all the trauma that I hadn't really dealt with, I guess. And it just made me think, how am I ever going to explain to my 10-year-old daughter the tragic way my mom passed away, like my mom was killed. And so it was really troubling for me. And I just left the room after I kind of changed the subject first because I didn't know anything else to do. And I left the room and just tried to sort out my thoughts.
And what happened after that?
And then, I went to work. I just went on and about my daily life. I'm a teacher, so I went to work and tried not to think about it too much. Being a teacher, I had an opportunity to take a workshop through my school district on mental health, learning about psychosis and how stress can cause a relapse and how people go through stress and relapse and recovery stages. It just really sent me into turmoil. Basically turmoil. And so between my daughter's question and the workshop, it just was the catalyst for me to find out more and to understand more. After my mother's tragic death, I went on. I think I was in shock. It was too much for me to process as a 20-year-old college kid. And so I just kind of shoved it under the carpet, I think, or as a way of dealing with trauma. I think that's how the brain deals with it. We just can't cope with it, so we don't. And so for 10 years, I just kept going on with my life until I was about 30, 31. And then I decided to do my graduate diploma in special education. I'd already been a teacher now by this point. And then I did my graduate diploma in special education, and I had the opportunity to research schizophrenia. And so at age 30, that's when I really started a journey that got me to where I am today. It was a 20-year journey, really. But it's taken me a long time to sort of learn and fully understand my mother.
What are your fondest memories of your mom?
I always say my mom is the one that sparked my love of reading because she took us to the library. And we went to Deer Lake a lot. Deer Lake has a really fond place in my heart. We loved it. It was like a piece of heaven to me. We'd go swimming. We'd rush right in the water, basically. We'd splash each other and just have lots of fun. And we'd come out, and go on the swings and have picnics. So it was lovely. Yeah, really lovely. And my brother and I keep up that tradition today. Just go to Deer Lake in her memory.
You shared with us a photograph of your mom that's one of your favorites. Could you tell us about this picture?
And I just love this picture because it shows how much she was loved, how much my grandmother, her mother, loved her, and just the primping of the curls and I love the blush, her cheeks and her smile, and I can see my mother in here.
Could you tell us about the time that you ran away from home when you were little?
Yeah, so I was 8.5 when that happened. I didn't know that my mom had stopped taking her medication. I think it's because she didn't want schizophrenia. Like, nobody wants to be ill. And she'd had so many years of recovery that she thought maybe she was cured, but she wasn't. But my brother and I didn't even know she had schizophrenia. We didn't even know she took medication. So we'd had an argument, and she'd been acting strange for quite a while now. And I just had enough. And I came in one day, I can't even remember what we argued about, but my mom's just like, that's it. I've had enough of you. Get out. And I was like, fine, I'm done too. I'm leaving. And I couldn't believe, this isn't I knew it wasn't really my mom. I think it's interesting that at 8 years old, I knew this wasn't really her, because I'm like, how could my mom say this to me? My mom loves me. This isn't right. Where is this coming from? So I knew it was coming from somewhere, but I didn't know where. But I was still mad enough to just leave the house. A lady brought me into the police station.
It seems that you blamed yourself for what happened to your mom and how you and your brother ended up with your aunt and uncle. When did you first become aware that you had this feeling of guilt? So
we were taken by our social worker to a courtroom, my brother and I, and my uncle was there. And then he was, hey, you're coming with me. come on, you're going to come with me. And I'm like, oh, I thought he was going to take us back to my mom's. But he didn't. Instead, he took us back to his place. And that's when he explained that, you'll be staying with us for a while. And that's when my voice in my head said, this is my fault. This is because I ran away. Because I realized that the courtroom, a decision was made, and the decision was going to be that we weren't going to live with my mom anymore. And that was because of me, because I ran away and the police picked me up, and that was that. So I didn't realize, but I carried that guilt for a long time.
How often were you and your brother able to see your mom after you had been taken to live with your relatives?
Once she was feeling better again, doing better after a few months. It was about once every 2 weeks, I'd say, just like for an afternoon. We'd go for lunch or just go to a park or something. Eventually, my aunt and uncle moved away, a long ways away, up to the Caribou. And so when we moved to the Caribou, well, we only saw her a couple times a year after that. So it wasn't very much.
What were those visits like for you? How was it for you?
It was awesome. We had fun times, and we'd watch movies a lot together and just go for walks and play Frisbee in the park, things like that. Just fun, simple things. That didn't involve a lot of money. Yeah. If parents separated, sometimes that other parent, the parent that the child lives with, they get stuck with the day-to-day stuff and all the homework and all this stuff, right? And then they go see their parent, other parent for a weekend, and then it's all fun because they get to do the fun stuff, right? So my mom was kind of like that fun parent. And I didn't know it then, but she actually would skip meals just to save money so she could give us spending money when we went to see her. But I wasn't aware of that back then, that she did that. And it just makes my heart grow for her and just love her more that she did that for us.
At what age did you realize that she had been diagnosed with the illness?
I was 14 when she told me. She kind of confided in me and said, oh, Phyllis, did you know sometimes God speaks to me through the radio? And I'm like, what? What do you mean? At 14. That doesn't make any sense. And so she's like, well, maybe it's because I have schizophrenia. And then I didn't know what to do. I never heard of this word. I did not have any clue what schizophrenia was. And no one ever talked about it. In my family, they never said that word. It was like the word was like taboo. You just don't speak of it.
It seemed like she went through a time where things were much better, and you had become a teenager, and then she went off her meds again. So what led to her going off her medications after such a long time of relative stability?
She lost her housing, and my brother and I didn't realize how stressful that could be for her. Because we're college kids. And my brother and I had no idea how much stress that put on our mom, because we had no idea how schizophrenia affected her. So it was things just went downhill from there. Her life didn't have to end the way it did if she could have got help. Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about the book. So you've completed it. You told me earlier that it took 4 years to write. Can you tell us what that was like for you?
I basically grieved my mother as I was writing. so it was, but it was a good journey. I feel like I'm finally talking about my mother now, because I realized how much she went through. It was really hard to do. It was really difficult. I had no idea how ill my mom could be. And but by writing it, I was able to sort of sort out the feelings that all those feelings that I hid, and I realized that I didn't know I felt guilt, and honestly today there is sometimes still some guilt, because I always think if I had known, if I could have done, if I could have, if only, right? But I know deep down that it wasn't my fault. Her death wasn't my fault, and us taken away wasn't my fault. I just loved my mother even more, because I realized how much she had to deal with, and how it must have been so hard for her to be alone. When she had her first relapse when I was 8. To me, outside of my grandmother, I find that she was very alone. And I think some mental health nurses were there, but there were other people that were not supportive of her. And I just find how hard that would have been. And she was only in her 30s, like when that happened. And it just, my heart really just grew for her.
You talk about, how you and your brother feel your mom's spirit. You talk in the book about how you and your brother went to some of those places like Deer Lake and other places, and sort of he had a nice way of sort of putting it. And I'm wondering if maybe you could share it with us.
We actually went back and looked at the places where we'd lived with our mom. He said to me, and he turned to me, our mother hasn't really left us, Her spirit lives, and he lives in the deep blue sky. Her spirit lives in the blooming plants. Her spirit lives in our hearts. And I knew he's right. Because, when we go, I can feel her. I can see her. I can feel her, hear her laughter. I can feel her love whenever we go to Deer Lake. Okay, I'm getting teary now. And it's just, and he's right. When you lose somebody, it's hard to lose anyone, no matter, And, but they do. They live in our hearts, and we can cherish their memories. And my mom shaped me. She made me who I am today. And I'm really, I'm proud of my mom, and I think she would be proud of me. So.